Okay, welcome back, folks. This is SubMessenger for Bullshido.net, and this is the next part in my series on MABS tools and techniques. I know the last video was a little bit long. I'm going to try and keep this one a little bit shorter, but I had a really short one and decided that I needed to do this first, so I'm going to kind of combine the two. This is kind of unscripted, so just bear with me. The first thing that I want to introduce you today is a piece of software that I like to use for organization of information. It is basically free for personal use. You can go and download it here. It is from a company called Paterva, so you're going to go to paterva.com, and what you're looking for is called CaseFile. I'm going to go right into downloads here, and I'm going to go to CaseFile, select as appropriate, download it. This is a Java runtime. I have had some interesting problems in the past. Depending on what Java that I have installed in my box, it does or does not work. But I think that they have finally fixed that by including a Java runtime specifically with the download. So you go ahead and download this here, get it installed, and then when you kick it off, you'll open it up here to your blank screen. So what we're going to do up here is we're going to start a new file, a new graph. This is a sheet of Kim that we are studying for these exercises. All right, so what this is a piece of software that, if you've ever watched a cop show or an FBI show or something where they have, a big cork board with pictures of people on it, and they take pieces of yarn and tie them between various pictures and stuff like that. Well, this is basically that in software. It is designed for use by law enforcement and investigative professionals. So this falls right into a lot of the same paradigm that we deal with in MABS investigations. Interesting side note, I also use CaseFile for genealogical research. It's very handy for that when you're trying to figure out who is related to who and where and when and why, and you can collect all your notes and information here and draw a nice picture that'll allow you to progress with your research. So we're doing a sheet of Kim here. First thing I'm going to do is come over here in my palette, and I'm going to look at people. Now, a person is a person is a person. A lot of the attributes that you'll have access to are the same. This is just the top level icon or whatever that you're going to say. We're going to call a sheet of Kim the business leader. Oops, where'd it go? All right, so John Doe. Two different ways that you can work with this node once it's here. You can double click right on the name, a sheet of Kim. Okay, you can do some of the stuff over here in properties. You can just go right in here and enter stuff, but the full interface is if you come up into double click it now. You have a number of different things that you can do here. So notes is a free-form field. You put information there, and when you mouse over the icon, you'll be able to see it. Attachments is very useful. It'll download pictures from the internet and put them right on here. So let's go back to our web browser over here, and let's go to just look up a sheet of Kim. All right, so here's a picture that maybe we want to associate with him. We'll copy this right off his website, and we're going to say attach URL
paste that in here. One little quirk here is that a lot of times you'll see that you'll have like photo.gif question mark blah equals 3 and some other stuff on there. Maltego is not smart enough to parse that stuff, so just truncate it to the end of the actual resource. You click OK, you can see it downloads the picture, it attaches it. When you come back over here, all right, now you can change the picture to Ashita Kim, and that shows up right here in your graph. You can zoom in by scrolling. Your overview up here allows you to pan easily on the graph. That's very handy when you start getting a lot of information collected. So there's a lot of different things that you can put over here. Locations, infrastructure we're going to be using a lot today. Groups, events, devices, you get the idea. There are different nodes that you can drop onto this graph to give you a picture of relationships. So we'll start out with his website, ashitakim.com. Okay, this is his homepage. So the focus really today is going to be on a primer for CaseFile, but more specifically we're going to concentrate on domain names and IP addresses. So I have a web page over here set up, ready to go. So I'm going to pull that into view here, and I have my Cygwin terminal here for command line tools that you can use. One of the things that we're going to start with is, you know what, I'm not going to go to the command line. I'm going to go right in here. All right, so ICANN, and forgive me, I don't know off the top of my head what it stands for, but this is basically the now global organization that is responsible for domain names. So ashitakim.com, microsoft.com, bullshito.net. ICANN is kind of the global authority on your domain names. So we're going to go right in to ashitakim.com, do a lookup, and hit the CAPTCHA. All right. So it comes back with the, this is called a whois record. And we get a lot of information from here. When you register a domain, you're required to provide 3 different fields. The registrant, who is, the person that is responsible for the domain overall from, an executive perspective. The administrative contact, this is usually going to be someone in charge of accounts payable or something like that, who pays the bills. And a tech contact is going to be, your IT guys that are responsible for exposing the domain to the World Wide Web. In recent years, it's become almost standard practice for people to use private registration. That's an upcharge basically everywhere that you go. So there are some that don't have private registrations. Ashita Kim does use private registrations. So what we have here is a third-party organization that is basically proxying his information. So it is hidden from our view. And what you see here is the mailing address, telephone number, and email address for this privacy provider. That's not always the case. I'll show you an example here in a moment. the registrar. So this is the company that you quote unquote purchase the domain name from. Network Solutions. Let's see here. Name servers. This is what we call glue. So when you register a domain, you want to start publishing DNS for it. You have a glue record that goes into the global master domain name servers. And that says to the top level domain name servers, here are the addresses of the servers that you can ask for information about this particular domain, ashitakim.com. Important dates. Sometimes you can glean some information here, like if they have just registered the domain or if it's been online for a long time. Here you can see this has been around for a very long time. ashitakim.com was registered initially in 1999. And one of the interesting things up here is that it is with Network Solutions. They are the original registrar. There was nobody else before Network Solutions and ICANN opened up the market for other providers. So now you've got GoDaddy, you've got MyDomain, and Domains Cheap, and there's tons of those out there now. But it's interesting because Network Solutions tends to be on the expensive side. So in my experience, you only see people with Network Solutions that have been there for a very long time. This is what we call the raw record. So if you were going to run this from a command line, this is the information that you would see. It's basically just reformatted into this web page up here. It's a copy of the same information. So you can say who is ashitakim.com on the command line, and it's going to go do the lookup, and you'll see that the information that I have here is exactly the information that I see here. So what can we do from here? All right, well, we know that he's using private registration, so we can't really see that information. You can try and solicit requests to the privacy provider. Your mileage is going to vary. Typically they're going to want to see some justification why you want that information, or in some cases they are just a straight through proxy. So what will happen is you'll send an email address to here, and it'll eventually go to Ashita Kim or whoever he actually has as the registrant contact. So you may be actually communicating with your target of your investigation, which may not be something that you want to do. So just be aware that those are avenues that you can take, but it's probably not going to be bearing a lot of fruit for you. But we do know that Ashita Kim has ashitakim.com. So we'll come over here into our case file and come into infrastructure, and we'll get a domain. All right, and we'll call it ashitakim.com. Now what we can do is create a link between these two. So all I'm doing here is I'm clicking on this node, holding my mouse down, and pointing an arrow over to our protagonist. You can put a label on here. Sometimes that's very handy for showing different relationships, and you can change the color, style, whatever. You get the idea. All right, so sometimes you don't like the way these registration power outage. Now we're on generator. All right, so sometimes you will see you want to change the way that this arrow looks after the fact, change the way it points or something like that. By default, you're in the node select mode. So what you want to do is come up here and forgive me. There. So I can double click right on the link and tweak that after the fact. Okay, so let's keep moving along here. So we've got a sheet of kim.com. We know the name servers that the glue record. So we can go and ask for now information about the web server. This is the way that your web browser works. When you browse a website, you type in a sheet of kim.com. It goes through your DNS settings and tries to figure out what IP address it needs to connect to in order to fulfill that request. So that looks, let's see, do I have dig on this? Yes, I do. All right. So dig is kind of a deprecated utility now. It used to be NS lookup, and then it was dig, and now it's something else entirely that I haven't started using yet. We come into our dig, and what you'll see here are the root servers. These are where the glue records are filed. So when you register a domain name, you say, all right, I'm going to have a sheet of kim.com, and these get installed into the root servers to say a sheet of kim.com, you should ask this server, ns3.worldnic.com. And so you could see that here. I'm going to do a plus trace, a sheet of kim.com. And what's that? That plus trace option there is going to allow me to recursively walk through all of the servers. So it's going to start at the root servers and work its way down. You'll get a lot of information out of that sometimes, but what you'll see is the path it took. So I went from root servers to GTLD servers. TLD is a top level domain, so I think it's global top level domain servers is what that stands for. So they had a referral for the glue record, and the server came back with a sheet of kim.com. Go to ns3.worldnic.com. So then we went to ns3.worldnic.com, and it came back with a sheet of kim.com is located at this address. That is the default domain record. A lot of times you want to look for the www record. And you can see that that came back from ns3.worldnic.com. And again, here's our IP address for www. So I'm going to take that over into my case file, and I'm going to say add an IPv4 address right there. And we'll associate that with a sheet of kim.com. All right, so what can we tell about this IP address? Moving on, we're going to hop over to another website called ARIN. This is the American Registry for Internet Numbers. There are multiple IP registrars that are responsible for globally handing out the IP address space. So in this particular case, we're at ARIN. Another one that you'll see a lot is RIPE. Which is the European registration, We're pretty sure that this is an errand number though. So we're going to go over here, pop this into whois, and we get a lot of information here. So the first block here is the network block. This tells you that this IP address is in a block of addresses. The CIDR and the net range here, mathematically they evaluate to the same thing. So a /14 means that there are 14 bits in the binary mask for the numbers. That evaluates to 256 times 256 times 4. So 20 to 23 is 20, 21, 22, 23. So 256 times 256 times 4, that's how many IP addresses are owned in this block. This is Amazon East. So this server is hosted on the Amazon cloud. That's EC2 is the Elastic Compute Cloud, I believe. And Amazon has two locations. They have an east and a west. So east, where this IP address lives, we'll get to in a minute. This is other just accounting information about that particular block of addresses. Here we have the responsible party, Amazon. These are contact records, very similar to the contact records that we saw over here for registrant and admin and tech. Here we have NOC, Network Operations Center, abuse, admin, and tech. If you clicked into one of these, you'll pull up the whois for that particular and get the details. Oh, they're all right here as well. So what we know here is that he uses the Amazon Compute Cloud. So we can create a record for that. And we can put a company up here. And we'll just kind of organize this. Like so. Now, as you're drawing this, you can move these things around, but there are some different things you can do if you come up into Organize. So Organize, you can move these things around hierarchically to give you a better idea of how things are related. Let's see here. What else was I going to do with this? We have, okay, we talked about geography. We'll hop over here to MaxMind. And it's not, IP address geolocation is not an exact science. We all know that Ashita Kim is in Florida somewhere, I believe. But since this IP address is the Amazon Compute Cloud, Amazon East, you can see that that's located in Ashburn, Virginia. So if we wanted to add a location here, we'll pick a city, I guess. Ashburn, VA, USA. Now, that is related to the IP addresses, so I'm going to put the IP address in Ashburn, Virginia, or the IP range in Ashburn, Virginia, versus putting Amazon, because we already saw that Amazon is in Seattle or whatever. One of the things you get here is accuracy radius. That tells you more or less, we used to call it a figure of merit. That basically says that it's within 1,000 miles of this latitude and longitude. All right. So some other things that we can do with his IP address. We want to know if, for example, he's sending email off that IP address. We can come over. There's two popular services. This is sender score and this is sender base. Pop in the IP address, hit the CAPTCHA. Oh, it doesn't like my space. Okay, so this one is saying that he's not sending a lot of mail, or if he is sending mail, he's not sending it through devices that return path has instrumentation on to be able to make any kind of determination as to what his IP reputation is. But what's interesting is that we have a new host name here, dojo.press. And here we have Dojo Press, which is Ashita Kim's company. Lots of other stuff up here, but we'll go ahead and take that website and add it to our list. We also know that that is related to this IP address, so I'll relate that as well. The secret ninja forum. All right. And we'll go over here to sender base. You can see they've done the geolocation here for you. See Ashburn. Again, he's not really sending any email here. You can see that some of this information we've already looked up. It's just being regurgitated here from this utility. He's not listed on any of the major blacklists. This block down here at the bottom tells you in a range what the other IP addresses are doing. So these are all other boxes on Amazon's compute cloud, and 3 of them are blacklisted. Now that doesn't have anything necessarily to do with him, because this is the Amazon compute cloud. You know, it's basically your next door neighbors are doing something, but you may have no knowledge or relationship with that activity. Who is again? We've already seen the email volume history. If he was sending any email, you could see on this graph, you know, spikes and peaks and valleys and stuff like that. Not really information that's going to be valid for a MABS investigation, but as you can see, like we found this Dojo Press just by pulling up one of these reports. That's other information that you can glean to start to build a better picture of, what this person is into, what kind of activities that they're engaging in online. And it seems to me there was one or two other things that I wanted to cover. Let's go back to ICANN because I wanted to show you, for example, Microsoft.com. In this particular case, they are not using domain privacy. And so here you could go and put in a Microsoft node and actually have mailing address and phone number and email address for them. So that pretty much covers what you can do with IP addresses and domain names. One of the things that I didn't cover here as far as IP addresses, let's just go back to our default dig. This is an IPv6 address. It's in a shortcut notation here. They're actually much larger numbers than what is represented here on the screen. So that is the difference between the A record, which we saw for ashitakim.com, has just a regular IPv4 address, but an AAAA is an IPv6 address. Other than that, everything else should more or less work the way that we said with all of these utilities. Although email tends to be IPv4 only at this point in time. So that, we'll call this a wrap for right now, and we'll see you on the next video.